Hello, and welcome to the Professional Pivot. I'm your host, Maggie Ruby. Here at the Professional Pivot, we believe networking is the mechanism, relationships are the story, and professional pivots are the outcome. Today, I am very excited to bring you part 3 of a 3-episode series, which we are calling A Conversation Around Masterful Networking with Annmarie Dixon-Barrow OBE. In part 1, we had the opportunity to focus on her extraordinary story. And in part 2, we were joined by an incredible executive in Annmarie's impressive network, Shailene Tirado. If you missed either one of those episodes, I highly recommend you check them out. In today's episode, part 3, we are being joined by a very impressive executive who is also a part of Annmarie's global network, Claire Camara, and we'll be focusing on masterful career pivots, networking and relationship building, and how moments, decisions, relationships, and curiosity fuel career growth. In essence, how the power of networking helps us discover what's next and help us open doors we never imagined were possible. So with that said, I'm very honored to reintroduce our special guest that this series is built around, Annmarie Dixon-Barrow OBE. Annmarie is a renowned executive coach, leadership advisor, and talent strategist, owning her own firm, Annmarie Limited, with her global business being based in the UK. I like to describe her as a masterful people connector who brings a uniquely international perspective to leadership and development, and instinctively is aware of cultural nuances and the importance of relationships and networking. She is a true visionary leader with a one-of-a-kind approach that translates into incredible success for her candidates and organizations, and always delivers superior results. Welcome back, Annmarie.
Thank you, Maggie. I don't know whether I can live up to such a brilliant introduction, but thank you once again. It's been a pleasure to do a series of 3 with you, and hopefully you might see me pop up in the future. Who knows?
I think that would be a brilliant idea. And I so appreciate you sharing your superpowers with us, because that's what I also call what you do, superpowers. And joining Annmarie, I am very pleased to introduce Claire Camara. Her career is a true testament to how masterful and strategic career pivots can chart an incredible career trajectory. Claire has spent her career at the intersection of people and transformation, often in places more HR leaders never go. She started out in people management at Marks and Spencer, then took a leap into the high-stakes world of major sporting events, leading workforce strategy for the London 2012 Olympics and the Baku 2015 European Games, where she built teams spanning over 50 nations. And somewhere in there, she also found time to advise Tony Blair, who was the UK's prime minister at the time, advising his African governance initiative. From there, she moved into the corporate world, rising to group people director at the Co-op, where she helped lead the organization through major transformation, including appointing its first female CEO in over 175 years. And then she stepped onto the global stage as Chief People Officer at Essence Mediacom, which is part of WPP, leading people strategy across 96 markets and 10,000 employees. Today, she's People Director at Channel 4, helping steer one of the UK's most iconic broadcasters through its own moment of change. And during that journey, she's picked up a fellowship with the CIPD, sits on advisory boards for the Global Esports Federation and Football Beyond Borders, and then somewhere found time to complete a degree in social psychology. Unbelievably impressive. Today, we are going to do a deep dive around pivotal moments that has helped shape her career. the role networking has played along the way, and her extraordinary partnership and long-term relationship with Annmarie. Welcome, Claire.
Well, thank you, Maggie. And hi, Annmarie. Great to be here. And yes, thank you. When you hear it played back, it sounds a bit daunting, doesn't it? I can't quite believe that's me, but thank you very much for such a warm welcome.
You're very, very welcome. And it's fun when you go down a walk down memory lane. It's kind of like, wow, I did all that. It's very, very, very exciting and impressive. And genuinely, I'm excited to have you join us. All right, Annmarie and Claire, if you're ready, let's get to it. So first, I would like to start by setting the stage and begin with each of you sharing with us how you met, how you've worked together with each other, and the impactful moments in your relationships. Marie, may we begin with you?
I think, yes, you can begin with me. And I remember meeting Claire. It was either 2009 or 2010. So it wasn't the year that was important. It was actually the building in which Claire was based, because I was running a small Black charity based around the UK, but it was very much a charitable organisation. And I was asked to go to local, which was the London Olympic Games Committee. And it was based in, I think it was Canada Road, Claire. It was on the 23rd.
That's it.
Yeah, Canada Wharf. It was on the 23rd floor, and it was in Canary Wharf in this absolutely stunning building. I was to meet the chief exec and Claire's boss at the time, Jean Tomlin. So it was quite daunting. And I went through, had the meeting, everything was great. And then Jean brought me out of the meeting and said, "You've got to meet Claire. Claire is one of my team. I think you'll get on." And I remember just instantly clicking with Claire, just the energy, the bubbliness, after coming out of that formal meeting and being, if I'm honest with you, scared to death, having meeting Claire and meeting somebody so real. And I also found out quite quickly that we both came from the retail industry. It was just like a breath of fresh air. So every time I used to go to local, my most important bit was after I'd finished meeting Claire's boss, the most important meeting was meeting with Claire and engaging with Claire. And we've always kept in touch from over the years. We worked together briefly or had an interaction when Claire was at the African Governance Initiative for Tony Blair. But we've always kept in touch. And I've always said, I want to get you a job. When the time is right, it's not that I will get you a job. I want to introduce you to an interesting opportunity. And that opportunity arose 11 years after I've said it. And so I just want to say that Claire, from the day of meeting her, I always knew she would be in my life. I think we're on the same wavelength. And it was just joy and a breath of fresh air. A bit like when I met Shaylee that we met in the previous episode.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for that. So it's really interesting because we kind of cross over in terms of our memories of meeting each other. Absolutely. Same place. I was working at London 2012 at the time. And what I loved about Annmarie when we first met was, I am pretty sure I asked you a question about connection or about kind of meeting somebody in the charitable sector. And immediately, Annmarie was very generous in opening her black book and introducing me to a gentleman called Tunde. And we decided that we would go off on a trip off to Harlesden. And I suppose you're right, in terms of the 15 or so years that we've known each other, what has been brilliant is the fact that our connection and our friendship, we don't judge. It can be years, it can be months, and we can spring right back to that very moment. And we, as you say, always in each other's lives, but no issue if we don't see each other for a year and a half, or we suddenly WhatsApp and then decide to have a cup of tea, as we did last year, wasn't it? And have kind of been connected ever since. So I'm really grateful for that moment and for the connection and the generosity that Annmarie has always, always shared with me.
I forgot about connecting you to Tunde.
Yes,
and that was he was a special and still is a special executive still in the sector that we both moved on from, really.
Yeah. Fantastic.
No, and it's so exciting to listen to both of your stories and how you guys connected. But I also think that what you both shared is so instrumental in terms of, you know, the value of just the connection and the you guys clicked. And that's a true testament to when you can go back in and you can just pick up where you left off, and there's no time that separates the two of you, even if there is a gap in time. And I also think patience is a virtue, because 11 years later, you know, magic happened, but magic happened along the journey between the two of you. So it's a very special story. So with that said, Claire, now let's focus on your career pivots, if we may. You're leading the People Agenda at Channel 4 during a period of significant change. So how does leadership differ when organizations are navigating uncertainty and transformation?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Maggie. So I suppose when I look back on my career, there are always moments of transformation, moments of big change within each of the experiences, or the majority of them that I've had. I think there's two things at this particular time. Steady state isn't an option, being one of my view at the moment. And I think when it comes to leadership, I think one of the biggest traits that you need in equal measure is understanding context and timing, and also a level of courage to keep going. So I think we have many different challenges and opportunities within Channel 4 at the moment. One is the particular sector is at a major crossroads within media, the media industry in particular. One is, you know, social media has taken a completely different form. And I think within that, the most important thing for us as leaders is to make sure that we are cognizant of the fact that we don't have all the answers. And that I think is a different style of leadership, that when you get to a certain level, you have to keep reminding yourself. So for me, that's really important. I would say that my superpower is probably experience is one thing, but I think the ability to think things through that you've never done before is becoming more and more important as we look, and as a people partner. And what I look for is somebody that can reimagine the future as opposed to just holding on to the past.
Yeah. And I think that is so critical right now, because businesses are evolving faster than, you know, we even can wrap our arms around sometimes. So I love that, and stretching and using new muscles, but it's always that problem solving and thinking about where do we want to take this to the future and how do we get there. I think that's brilliant advice for everyone. And, you know, one of the things in the introduction of your extraordinary background is you've worked across very different sectors. And very, very impressive. So how do you adapt while remaining true to your leadership style to adjust to those different nuances of those sectors? Because I'm sure there's dramatic shifts sometimes in those.
Yeah. Great question. So how do I adapt? I think the most important thing is to understand the business. Yeah. So I always try to understand the business. But I think the adaptation is really about context, as I keep saying, and timing, because I think, you know, forcing at the wrong time doesn't provide impact or sustainability. So I think that one of the things that I really pride myself on doing is understanding the business. I may see things perhaps that people can't hear or see yet, but it's having the wisdom to know when to land those things. And also just, first of all, delivering what they want as opposed to what you think they may need. Yeah. So I see that as really important in terms of kind of where I am. So in terms of the businesses, I think the businesses in a way are almost irrelevant. For me, what's important is purpose and impact. So with all the organizations that I've worked in, bar perhaps one, all of them have a core purpose that should go beyond the walls of the organization. And I kind of hang on to that and make sure that that becomes my kind of superpower.
Well, superpower that is. And Annmarie, we even talked about, it's so critical. And I've watched you in action with going in and understanding the big picture and the businesses. So you understand the true dynamics of like where you are and where you need to go and how to get there. But you also brought up something else, Claire, that I thought was terrific is, go what they need versus what you think they need. But that's listening skills. And that's really, understanding the business and then the just cultural dynamics that are going on because, and sometimes there's got to be a little bit of persuasion in there because maybe what they think they need might not be. And so there's that persuasion and managing through influence of trying to help kind of get them there.
And I think
Absolutely.
it's important, Maggie, when Claire said, know the company, do your research. Because as a headhunter, clients say to me all the time, I don't want to interview that person. They've only worked in this, this, and this. I want somebody who's worked in banking all their life. And I say, well, if you want diversity of thought at the top of your company, you need to look at people with transferable skills. So the reason I like Claire, I like her CV, I like her background, it is diverse. And it's not the sector that you've worked in, it's the effort that you put in to understand when you are pivoting to different sectors and into different organizations. So doing your homework and doing your research, and actually companies taking not a leap of faith, because if somebody's worked at the top in 3 or 4 different sectors, what is that telling you? That's telling you that they have an ability to transform and still deliver. Whereas the old model is let's stick to what we know. No, in my world and in Claire's world, it's you go where you think you can give the most and give the most skills and offer that strategic steer.
Yeah. And leveraging those. And I think to some of our listeners, whether you're interviewing and being able to help position yourself with transitioning from different sectors, use that to your advantage because that almost speaks indirectly to transferable skills. And then if you're internal and you're navigating, that really makes a difference because that helps. I love transferable skills. I think that broadens the aperture so much that it really allows diversity of thought to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely, Maggie. I think the other thing as well is that that I have to prepare myself sometimes to be the only voice in the room that gives a different point of view.
Yeah.
And I used to worry very early in my career that I was thinking something different to what everybody else was in the room. Now I was talking to somebody yesterday that I use that as my superpower. As an offer to an alternative view that then means that you start to kind of perhaps open for innovation, different context, and open a discussion perhaps in a different way.
Yeah. And I love the word innovation.
It's quite scary being the only voice in the room that's saying something. And I sort of feel for Claire when she was in that situation, because I used to do a lot of work for The Economist and I still connected and worked with Andrew Rashbash, their old CEO. And I knew that I'd done something right when I was on my 3rd organization working with him. And he said, Annmarie, you're here because I want people to hear something different. That was the first time a client had actually recognized, because sometimes you feel like, God, did I say something stupid? I'm not an intellectual. I know what's right and I know what good strategy looks like, but I'm not, an Oxford Don, which is a lot of the people at the top of corporate PLC are. So it was good to get recognized by somebody who's an expert in the field for being different and saying things that are different. That again goes back to when I first met Claire. She was so different and still is. And it's a breath of fresh air in a corporate environment where everyone is a clone of each other.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back into same thoughts in the same room. And you need that fresh perspective. And everybody starts thinking and playing off that different, and just it takes off into a whole different into a whole different direction. So, okay, we're talking about, innovation, and now let's shift to curiosity. Curiosity seems to be a recurring theme throughout your career, Claire. So what attracted you to social psychology later in your career that is, and how is that learning influence, how has that influenced your leadership approach to things?
Yeah. Thank you. So I think I left school at 17. So I left and I didn't have further education. And it's always been something that something that I've wanted to do. And so I think that one of the things that I learned, I suppose, when I did my CIPD is that I haven't have a kind of like a inherent intuitive way of doing things that I wanted to see was applicable within social psychology, really. Yeah. So I'm still partway through, and I chose social psychology because it has an impact and is very relevant to my role in terms of context, environment, and how humans operate within a particular environment and context. So that was the desire. I also wanted to do something that was, for me, very interested in the community. I believe that everybody has a unique mission in the world, and so all of this is kind of like was feeding my like back pocket ambition to someday do something more global, perhaps, be it voluntary or maybe in a paid role for the future.
Well, and it seems like that translated into a reality down the road with your future steps from there and current. I just, I love, I mean, and for anybody, it's like constant learning and growing as a person. And again, it can relate to job, but it also can relate to, out of the office and just impact that you can have in a community, for example. But I think that, I encourage everybody to take classes or do other studies, and you integrated that into, and then look how you played off of that with your career and your, with personal endeavors. So I think that's just spectacular. So Claire, you just keep giving us brilliant slices of advice, and I just love it. So here's one. So between the 2015 European Games and then your return to the co-op, you took a contract role advising the Tony Blair African Governance Initiative. What drew you to that detour into governor and policy work, and what did you bring back with you from, like, what did you pull out of your corporate HR experience, and what did you pull back into it from those different experiences?
Yeah. So my gift from London 2012 was that after London 2012, I came out thinking that I can basically do anything. Yeah, because I entered something that I'd never done before. We had to think ourselves through it, and we only had one shot. Yeah. And on opening ceremony to deliver and deliver well. And that taught me to think systematically in a slightly different way. So when I was offered the role with the African Governance Initiative, I embraced it as something that was a new opportunity to think through. They had different challenges around working with government, working with community, and actually delivering some kind of key programs across, mainly across Africa. And that was the pull beyond anything else. The interesting thing, though, back to networking and connection, was that I literally whispered to somebody that I had some time, and they connected me to somebody who connected me to somebody who then meant that I ended up doing this work, which I very much enjoyed delivering to, which was the segue to them then becoming the Tony Blair Foundation. So it was no more complicated than that, really, in terms of what the opportunity was and how I got there.
The pull of Africa. I remember at the time that you were doing that role, and that the governance initiative was early days in dabbling and developing a different way of working on the continent. So you're underselling the fact that you were actually there at the cutting edge of evolving. If you look at the Gates Foundation, the Give Well Foundation, it was the forerunner of a lot of those, and you were there. You were there in 2012. when that was happening. You went to Baku. So all these pivots are just part of your career development. And I will always admire the fact that you took that leap and went to the African Governance Initiative, because at the time, you know, it wasn't the big all singing, all dancing funded organization now. So
Yeah.
take off to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, I think that's a perfect dimension to layer into that experience. And you started off, Claire, with talking about what you know, doing what you love. So, what gave you the confidence to leave a career that you loved to join London 2012?
Oh, well. Now, Maggie, I have a fantastic younger brother, actually, David. And as you know, I loved my job at Marks and Spencer, and I nearly didn't join London 2012. And I remember saying to David, I've been offered this role, but I love this. And David said to me, don't be so ridiculous. He said, you've got to go. This is a one in a lifetime opportunity. And as we finished the conversation, he said, Claire, take the bravery pill. And that bravery pill has served me well. I use it, if you like, for everything that I do now in terms of, am I actually taking a bit of a bravery pill here? And had I not made that leap, it completely changed my whole life in so many different elements. So that's what led me there. And also a connection that I'd already had as well within London 2012, but in the form of Jean as well, Jean Tomlin, who was the HR director at the time. But David and his bravery pill, which I use to this day, is what kind of like gives me lots of opportunities, and also encourages me to perhaps kind of go down paths and new avenues that I would not have trodden before.
I love it. Okay, I'm writing this down. Bravery pill.
The bravery pill.
Absolutely. We use that a lot. I think that's a buzzword that everybody should remember. I love it. I love it. I think this is a perfect segue into us to really kind of shift and talk about the power of networking and building relationships, and how, you know, networking's role helps with the dynamics of pivoting. So Claire, how do you build credibility and influence when you don't have years of established relationships? Because you've talked about moving to different sectors. So how do you establish those relationships?
Yeah. So the first thing is how I can support. Yeah. So how I can support you as opposed to what do I need from you? That's where I always kind of want to start from. I think there's that leads to building trust. And also, I really try, if I can, to be very generous with my network and my time. I had a conversation with an individual earlier on in the week, and a fantastic individual that works in our organization that is leaving. And normally when people leave, he was completely shocked when I took some time to have a conversation with him. And at the end of the conversation, I said to him, I'd really love for one of the senior leaders, to mentor you beyond the walls of Channel 4. Yeah, completely taken aback. But offering your time to support and mentor, or to just, you know, connect somebody is a way of, for me, making sure that I continue to network informally, as well as obviously the kind of the formal forums that you would be invited to, etc. But I know that, you know, based on my background, based on where I started my life and my career, I would not be where I am now were it not for generous individuals who mentored me, generous individuals that gave me their time, and leaders who invested in me and saw something that I didn't even know existed. I used that as my compass, because when I was growing up, all I wanted to do really was have enough money to buy gold and silver shoes. Yeah. Now I have a whole room full of gold and silver shoes. So I'm looking for that individual that wants to fulfill their dreams and support them in any way I can.
But I think it's also important, Claire, because by continuing to develop and expand and give away your network, it also connects you to generations beneath you. You know,
Exactly.
I'm in my 60s now, and I find I'm mentoring my mentees' children, you know, and
wow.
into a job, and now they're about to have children. So it's a way of keeping fresh, and the successful connectors and networkers, they don't connect up. And I suppose I've got a belligerent way of dealing with it. Always used to say to my network, why would I want to connect up? Because those people are going to retire and die soon. I want to be where the fresh energy is. So you're continually helping people who are going into other roles, maybe more junior to you, and it keeps you fresh. And that's a sign of a good networker. Don't network up, network down.
I think the way that I do harness, should I say, my network up would be to try and invite them to do the same thing. And it's and that's how I would use
That's
that
great.
to kind of create a bit of a movement around, like, supporting the next generation, or just supporting somebody by opening a door for them. So that's how I kind of like to use that. Sometimes it works, if I'm honest, sometimes it doesn't, but I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, never give up on that angle. I love it. But also it's kind of like you've wrapped your arms around all the experiences that you've been given, and you're just paying it forward. And I love, keeping that dynamic going. So well done, well done. So just a little bit of shift to go to like your advisory board. So you currently sit on advisory boards for Global Esports Federation, Football Beyond Borders, and the Youth Futures Foundation. How do you decide which relationships and organizations are worth investing your time, outside of your day job?
Yeah, yeah. You'll see the thread here, Maggie. It's all about young people, and it's all about
Yeah.
opportunity. So that's what I decided, that if I have time and, an opportunity, that's what I try to build from. And it comes really from understanding kind of some of the challenges and issues around for young people across the globe at the moment, and trying to use that time effectively, really, within those spaces. So that's what the compass is. And I do get challenged by my EA on occasion, saying, please say no, because you can't fit another thing in, but I will always try.
I think that's spectacular. And we were talking about, networking up, et cetera, but you've worked with some incredible CEOs and leadership teams. What have you learned about building trust and influence? And you mentioned trust earlier, trust and influence at the most senior levels.
What have I learned? I had the most incredible CEO, who will remain nameless, that when I first started was probably one of my most difficult customers, because they'd been in the organization a long time. They knew everything. They'd never had a coach, but nobody had ever given them feedback. And so what I learned was to really meet individuals where they are, to always be back to the bravery pill, kind of say what needs to be said. Yeah. Even if your voice shakes. Our one-to-ones lasted, we'd have an hour in the diary, and for the first 3 months, our one-to-ones lasted at the most 15 minutes, because I would go in, I would offer feedback, I'd talk about something, and then he'd say, go. Yeah. But then, so my benefit, I suppose, in that was we built a really honest and credible relationship, because he knew that I would always give him the feedback and be honest. We worked together to transform the business, and grew and had a mutual respect for each other as we started to progress. So I think that's what I've learned. I've also learned the importance of always doing and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I've watched both of you, and I didn't mean to jump in. Both of you, and Annmarie, I've seen you in action doing this, but both of you, I think you are so eloquent in the way that you express your thoughts. So sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that positioning allows you to have those feedback responses, have a different opinion in a room. And like I said, I've seen Annmarie, you've done that just
I think it's
way.
I think it's important, Maggie. I can remember a very famous actor, who I won't name, once said to me, I never see the real world anymore, Annmarie. And I was staying at his house at the time. He generously lent me his flat. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I only see what people think I want to see. So everything is polished, everything is painted. You know, he's quite prominent, so the carpets are down. And he said, the thing about you, Annmarie, is not everybody likes you, but you're brutally honest. And at least you will say it as it is, because no one ever told this actor, you know, that he could be a bit of an arrogant prick at times, excuse my language. But I think you need to be honest with CEOs, because everyone flatters them, everybody gives them accolades, and they value that the truth and a bit of honesty. So I almost smiled when Claire said she got 15 minutes, because I can remember some bosses that I've had when I've been lucky to get 5, and it's like, get her out the door. Yeah, a year down the line, you can't get out of the office.
Exactly.
Because they want to suck all your knowledge, all your information. But that's success. It's just, you have to be honest. And there aren't enough honest conversations. We allow executives who aren't performing, who are bad for the business, who provide toxicity, and we allow that to continue. I think Claire and I have probably learned over the years, it is so much fairer to be cruel to be kind.
Well, the value add that then you both bring to the table. And I've seen this throughout my career as well. A lot of leaders like to surround themselves with yes people, and that does them no service whatsoever. So what a fresh breath of air both of you bring to the table when you just, you know, cut through it and say, you know, here are my thoughts. And it brings a different dimension to it. I think that's just excellent.
And
so
Claire, thing, if you don't mind, the other thing, if you don't mind, Maggie, is there's also, can they hear you? Yeah, so I always ask myself, if I say this, can they actually hear me at this particular moment in time? And I think sometimes you may see things and you just know there's no point having the conversation because they won't be able to hear. And I think that is something that is really important, I think, as we kind of like want to build relationships and actually want to develop and work with senior leaders.
Yeah. And it's kind of, you know, timing is everything, and reading the room and the audience, you know. Absolutely. So I think those are important things, because if you're going to pick your moment, then you want them to, I love that. That is brilliant. So thank you for adding that to this. Just there's so many takeaways that you both are providing. It's wonderful. So Claire, you've been involved in appointing some exceptional executives and leaders throughout your career. What have those experiences taught you about talent, sponsorship, and leadership potential? And I think sponsorship kind of is somewhat of a different vernacular than maybe just relationship building, you know, so those dynamics. So how have you tackled that?
Well, I think to be frank, it's different depending on the context and the environment in which you're operating in, for sure. In fact, probably that's the big thing that I've learned, in the context, environment, and what the organization needs at that particular moment in time is really important. I think the other thing as well is I really pride myself in never hiring for now. Yeah. So always hiring for the future, and what are the traits that you need and want for the organization of the future. So I think that's really important.
Critical.
I also, not necessarily a senior leader, but I also pride myself. My best ever hire was a woman I met in the nail shop in Azerbaijan. We sat together. She was an EA for one of the hotels, and I convinced her to come and work with me on the Baku Games, and taught her and coached her around HR and all of the aspects. And she worked with me for 3 years throughout the games. And post that, she's gone on to travel the world. She's gone on to have senior roles across the whole of the globe, and she I think is my one of my kind of proudest moments. And I suppose if you kind of look at that at a macro level, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the individual that is able to really spot, develop, and grow talent at any level within the organization, in terms of leader. there's one more tiny thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So there are archetypes of leaders. There's the executor, the scaler, and the disruptor. And I always have this little kind of like checklist in my mind as to what do we need now, will they fit within each of those archetypes for the organization that I'm working in or leading.
Love it. Would you repeat the three categories again?
Yeah,
Because I
so
think this is profound for everybody to
yeah,
have a takeaway with.
so I think in every organization there's almost like a mass of different archetypes. The first is the executor, the individuals that kind of do stuff and execute effectively. The second is the individual that is able to take an idea and scale it across the organization, beyond that. And then the third is the disruptor, the individual that will kind of disrupt the status quo and drive innovation across the organization. And I think what I try to do when I recruit is look and see which one is that person, and how do we then make sure that the right support mechanisms are around them. It's something that we worked on in one of my previous roles that I've always taken with me.
I think that is just excellent advice. Absolutely. And we live in a world right now that is just evolving, and technology is driving so much. How has relationship building changed for you in your like in today's digital world?
So I asked AI, what is it that you can't do? And AI has limited imagination, is not empathetic, and can't feel. So within the context of how I network, I don't think anything has fundamentally changed, because I feel that network is about relationships. It's about all of the things that are human to human. And I probably just use the new media forums to make connections and continue to connect. But the hierarchy stays the same, because otherwise you become transactional as opposed to really connecting in the right way, in my mind. So I try to hold dear, keep that.
Well, and it's leveraging, take the best of the technology, but still keeping true to, it's the people connector, it's the relationship piece of it.
Yeah, and the benefit is that I can now go global, yeah, through
Yes.
media. Even this is something, that perhaps that wouldn't have happened however many years ago. So I think that the benefits that technology gives us, we shouldn't um underestimate. But I think human to human empathy, courage, all of those things still are really important if you're going to build great networks, trust and friendship, as we're illustrating now.
Yes, very, very true. So Claire, everything that so many words of wisdom that you've shared with us. And so wrapping up a little bit, Annmarie, would you like to begin us with the kind of the wrap up?
I think Claire has given us a real flavour of where her career journey has come from. She started in retail at Marks and Spencer's, pivoted to the London Olympic Games 2012, European Games, then to the Co-op, also to Essence Media, then into broadcast media. And it's just been an interesting career in different roles, different pivots. But is there a thread to all your roles, Claire, that bring it together? Is it just a case of luck and you just happen to be in the right place at the right time? Or is it an element of both?
I think what I tried to do is explain my eclectic mix of organizations through one lens. Is this a moment within this organization that I can contribute to, that goes beyond the walls? So I think that transformation and what is the moment. If I can't understand what the moment is, then I'm not really the right person for that organization. So I think the golden thread is the moment. The back pocket stuff is the bravery pill. The kind of forward thinking stuff is the courage to just keep going and be the only voice in the room. That's my little kind of like a recipe, if you like, at the moment.
And I think that's really important,
Yeah.
because I do think we need a range of tools in our box as we're going through our career. And I think more executives, given what's happening around the globe, need to have more transferable skills and need to think about the role that they're applying for. Can they actually make a difference now and in the future? Most
Yeah.
people are only in the now. I want more money and I want a better job title. I observed you over the years, Claire, and I'm not saying you're not driven by having a good salary, but equally you're driven by not the title, but actually whether you can actually make a difference in the
Yeah.
environment that you've gone into. And I want to stress again is that a career is no longer linear. You're
Yeah.
here off on different trajectories. And if you're given the opportunity in your current career, whoever it is, and you're given the opportunity to go work for another organization, take a secondment, do an assignment in Africa, India, around the globe, jump at it. Because as a global headhunter, that is what I'm looking for. So when I look at your CV, Claire, I see a golden diamond and a golden nugget. I'm not saying
Yes.
every recruiter would see that, but I think, my God, I've got to find a company to take this energy. And that is,
Yeah.
I see your sort of pivoting through your career makes you one of the best executives to forward to any role. Because I'm a firm believer, unless it's something technical like a civil engineer, most execs with a bit of wherewithal can do most jobs at the top of corporate PLC. And you're one of them, Claire. And I've no hesitation in recommending you for any role in my suite that comes along. So we have to watch this space, won't we?
We do.
I love it. I love it. All right, so let's have some fun. I love the word golden nuggets. Claire, you've given us so many golden nuggets and words of wisdom. So let's kind of do quickly through a run through of advice to leave everybody with. So with that said, what is your number one piece of networking advice for someone listening who feels possibly stuck in their current career track?
Step forward.
I like that. If someone in their early career wants to build the kind of network that leads to real pivots, not just contacts, but relationships, where should they start?
They should start by learning, watching, and picking one person to have a coffee with that they wouldn't normally do so with.
Well, I think that's great. All right, so one more. What's the best piece of career advice you've ever received? And did you take it right away or did you use it later on?
Well, you know what it is. It's take the bravery pill. The bravery pill, for sure.
I need to go to the pharmacy after this is over and get that pill.
Bravery pill. I think the other thing as well, if I may, is that everybody has huge potential that they do not tap into. So I think that was something somebody said to me that has stuck with me.
I love it. All right, rapid reflection. You ready for this, Claire?
Mm-hmm.
All right, one word that sums up every career pivot you've made.
Courage.
Ooh, I love that. That was courageously fast. Best piece of networking advice you've ever been given in one sentence.
Share.
I love that. Riskiest pivot on paper that turned out to be the right call.
Where is Azerbaijan? That was the first thing. Yeah, sorry.
No, I love that. Okay, so to officially wrap up, let's have some fun with a little, we're kind of on a roll with this, with a little additional texture to add to our conversation. So with that said, I'd like to end with a rapid fire round with both of you. And Annmarie, you can always jump in first on these questions. So ladies, are you ready?
Yep.
Annmarie, are you
Yeah.
ready? All right, here we go. This goes to both of you. Coffee, meeting, or Zoom?
Zoom.
Zoom.
Okay, both of you again. One word that defines great networking.
Trust.
Confidence.
Love both of those. Speaking of both, this goes to both of you as well. Is it who you know or who knows you that matters, that's mattered more in your career?
Who knows you?
Who knows you? Yeah, I had to reflect on that actually. Yeah.
I like that. Well, you guys are right in sync with all of these. We love it. Okay, Claire, this one's for you. What's next for Claire Camara?
Watch this space.
I love it. I love it. So, Claire, that's very exciting. And I know watching that space, we will follow you in wildly successful endeavors. So I think that is spectacular. And Annmarie, before we wrap up the series, would you leave us with some of your brilliancy? What is the biggest thing you would like for us to take away as listeners? What do we want to take away from your series?
I think is never take yourself too seriously. Be as open and honest as you can be. Walk with confidence. I like the fact that Claire's brother said take the bravery pill, because good executives have taken many bravery pills. And I think always remember that on your path to where you're going, never forget where you've come from, because humility and being humble also goes along. You know, I'm not saying that a little bit of arrogance isn't bad, but just don't forget where you've come from and where you will end up. So it's been an absolute pleasure doing the series of 3. I really enjoyed doing ours one-to-one. I've thoroughly enjoyed this episode with Claire and just reminded me again what a stellar executive she is. And also the session with Shailene. I sent Shailene's podcast to her old reciprocal mentor that she worked with many years ago in Euromoney. And he actually sent me an email this week and said it made his year that he was able to touch Shailene and he learned something and she learned something. And it made his year. And that's what connections and networking and leadership is about. It's not about, you know, having that big head and that golden globe. It's about those secret things, those long-term relationships that you can point back to over your career. And I can think of quite a lot of those things, but I want to just reiterate the connection and the network with you and Dick Parsons was one that I will always treasure. And let's hope we've got another 30 years of connections and networking. Thank you, Maggie. And
thank you for that. And, you know, powerful thoughts and words to live by. And I love the never forget where you came from and who you are. And that's that authenticity piece that both of you clearly bring to the table. And again, Annmarie, I've seen you in action with that, and it's just beautiful. Okay, so Claire, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible story with us. It is incredibly impressive. You've just accomplished so many things, and I love your journey, and your words of wisdom will echo in our ears for a long time. But Annmarie, I really do want to say thank you for letting us build this series around your superpowers. And I feel so privileged to have worked so closely with you over the years, and very excited about what we will accomplish together in the future. I like what you said, next 30 years. And this is the most important thing. And for the real joy of being able to call you friend, you always impress. And so to just kind of officially close us out, I have a special announcement to share. And Annmarie kind of had a little teaser at the top of our podcast, but a special announcement to share that Annmarie has agreed to be a recurring guest on our Professional Pivot podcast. So thank you for that. And we all look forward to it, I know.
Thank you, Maggie.
And once again, thank you both for everything. And I hope everyone listening has enjoyed and gained some new perspective from this episode and series. And I'll leave you again with this. Please remember, networking is the mechanism, relationships are the story, and professional pivots are the outcome. Have a terrific rest of your day to everyone. And please remember to like, follow, and subscribe. Until next time.